Management Research.
Hello and welcome to the Management Research podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Eugene. Hello and welcome to the next episode in my strategic management series in the Management Research podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Eugene. Today we continue talking about the threat of entry. It is, already 6th episode dedicated to this force in the 5 forces framework. And in each of the episodes we talk about one of the drivers that can explain why it is easy for some firms to enter the market and threaten you, and why it may be hard to enter the market and threaten you. And as I said before, it depends on where are you in this situation. Are you the one who wants to enter the market and threaten others? Or are you the one who is on the market and can be threatened by the others? Each time the driver will show you what can be good, what can be hard, what can be bad for you, depending on where you are in the situation. In our today's episode, we are going to talk about the governmental and legal barriers. Because there is a very simple mechanism to protect your market. You just go to the market that is highly protected, and if you are in, it can happen that the others will not easily enter. You can see it by the protectionist measures of some of the countries who protect their agricultural production. So if you are from the country where agricultural production is protected, then for you it is easy to do something, and you shouldn't be afraid of the competitors from other countries. You will have a legal barrier that cannot be just broken by somebody else, because legal barriers are very robust. Moreover, they're usually long-term, because it's very hard to override a legal regulation. There are reasons why firms introduce this, or why countries introduce these legal barriers. They sometimes want to nudge something. They want to develop certain market niches. They want to make themselves less dependent from other countries, let's say in the field of energy or in the field of agriculture. And for this reason, they introduce some barriers to stimulate development of their own industry. The legal barriers may have impact on the capital requirements, how much money you will need. For instance, at least, I don't remember the precise numbers, but in Ukraine, about 15 years ago, it was a question of minimal requirements, how much you needed to open your own bank. And almost each big firm had their own bank. And it was done because as soon as you get the license for the bank, then you can make your transactions cheaper, and they will happen within your house. And many big enterprises, they really had their own bank to have all the transactions cheaper within the firm, but also between the firm and other firms, their partners and customers. And you get, I think, direct access to the banking system in Ukraine, and then you can make all these transfers. Plus, you can pay all the salaries for your employees using your own ATM machines that you just install somewhere close to your factory in some districts. Some of these banks, they grew and became national banks, and some then later closed. But then they changed the regulation. As far as I know, for now it's very hard to open a bank, because these requirements regarding the capital is much higher. If you have a regulation where it is easy, let's say low capital requirements to enter this system, you will have plenty of banks and more competition, because at the end, these banks were mainly aimed on their firms and their employees, but later the family members join the bank, somebody else has joined the bank, and it starts growing. So it may be a good idea to reduce the capital requirements if you want to increase competition. Vice versa, if you want to protect your market, if you want to have more stable financial systems, if you want to have a lower threat of bankruptcy among banks, even if it's a small bank, the bankruptcy will hurt the industry. What else we have apart from capital requirements? We have the legal regulations regarding customs. If you want to send something from one country to another one, you have to pay customs. If you want just to import something, customs will protect your market. And standards. We have the DIN regulation, we have, I think, the UN regulation, which explains what are the standards locally, and if you want to sell some products in Germany, they have to fit into the DIN standard, or if you even want to run some processes internally in your organization, you also have to fit into this DIN standard. Otherwise, if not, then you might not be able to get there. And I think it can be a reason why some Chinese car manufacturers cannot enter the European or the German market. The market is really protected against the car production from other countries. The trick is, of course, that you can also have some impediments with this one. For instance, the national law is hard to change, and for this reason, some products, they can be legal in one country and illegal in a different country. And if you think about the CBD, cannabis-based products, they were legal already in some countries and are still illegal in some of the European countries. Even within the US, you have the different regulations. And what you're allowed to make in Colorado, you may not be allowed to perform in the Washington, D.C. These barriers, they also appear and disappear, and it can happen that you join the market while it is protected, and next day they just get rid of this protection. This is what happened especially in Austria at several markets. As soon as we had the European guidelines and several, let's say, impediments had to be eliminated, all of a sudden different markets changed in Austria, and for instance the agriculture is now at the moment not as well protected as it was protected 10 years ago. At the same time, it increased the level of competition, also the quality of products. We can also see that there are different other things like selling the land in Austria. On the one hand side, it was a very protected market. It was allowed to sell, let's say, the real estates only to locals, only to Austrians. Now, because of the European regulations, it can be sold also to the European citizens, which is much broader, which also allows, for instance, those people who immigrate and buy a passport, let's say not buying a passport, get a passport via investment into, for instance, Cyprus on a firm or something like this. They get the European passport, and this was one of the way how the Russian oligarchs can buy real estate here in Austria, although they're under sanctions, but as a EU citizens, their family members can buy it for them. What I want to say about this one, that the markets can be protected, and depending on where you are in this situation with these legal barriers will help you or will not help you. If you are from, let's say, Tajikistan and you want to export something to Germany, it will be really a big problem. And in Ukraine, only a few years ago, it was also a big problem. Whatever it is, if the quality is good, still you had to pay all the customs, you had to fill all the standards and so on. But as soon as Ukraine get their associated membership in the European Union, the customs, they almost disappeared. Now it is much cheaper to import different products as soon as they fit the standards. So now the Ukrainian enterprises, they try to follow the standards and they try to export their products to Europe because it is where they can sell them to a better price. So it just disappeared almost immediately. It was a long discussion, and then on one day it disappeared, and all of a sudden the market that was pretty protected, the European market, became very open to Ukrainians. Think about it when you develop your business. Think about it if you decide to go to a new market niche. What are the regulations there and how fast they can disappear or how fast they can appear? Remember, we have many examples when the populists come to power and they introduce new regulations, all of a sudden do something, and it may harm your product. On the other hand, as long as you're in a larger system like the European Union, it's now very hard for the populists to introduce regulation that will contradict the European regulation. This might not work. So in this event you will be a bit more protected, but at the same time you know that in the European Union you have some additional regulations that you don't have somewhere else, like in the US. You can sell there any smartphone in the European Union, it should be now with a USB-C connector. I hope it was interesting. I wish you all the best, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye bye.